In this video, I'm going to be replacing the GPU on this early 2008 15-inch Apple MacBook Pro. Now, these machines are very widely known to have a defective GPU, and the reason for that are the chips that nVidia produced that Apple used in these machines had a manufacturing defect that caused premature failure, usually due to the heat level that they produced under normal operating conditions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to replace the original GPU in this system with the revised version of the nVidia G84 GPU used in these machines. These of course have an nVidia GeForce 8600M GT, which is a G84 based graphics chipset. So right here you can see I have quite a few sets of new GPUs, and the reason I've gotten all these out is because there is actually some slight differences between these two, or these and then these four. So I got these from a seller on eBay that I always get these from in China, and if we go ahead and take a look at them, you can see that they look perfect. There's not a scratch on them. They look brand new, which is exactly what I like to see. And as you can see there, they have a date code of 2014. That's what that 14 is in 1427A2. Now, these, like I said, were purchased from an eBay seller in China, and they cost me about $30 a piece. Now, these GPUs I found on eBay later, and these cost me $30 for all four. Now, they are seemingly the same chip, and they probably will be fine, but if you take a look at this one, you can see that it looks pretty good. However, the color of the substrate, or the underfill underneath the die there, looks slightly more brown than it does on the brand new GPU. Now, these both have the revised underfill material, because if it were a non-revised chip, the underfill material would be black. So I know this chip is good and will work fine. However, I have a question as to whether or not it has been used before. So as you can see on this one is actually quite a bit lighter than the other one. It does look like, you know, they have been used at some point and probably removed from another board. Now, that's not a huge deal, because I think they would work just fine anyway, because these, I've never seen a revised GPU fail, and these are revised GPUs. There's no question about that, because of that substrate color, as I showed you. And I do also have another video on my channel where you can actually see the differences between a revised GPU and a non-revised GPU. And of course, we'll be seeing that in this video when I take the original GPU off this board, which is of course a non-revised GPU. But yeah, I'm kind of disappointed that these are probably used, but not too disappointing. But not needless to say, I am going to actually be using my known brand new GPUs, or one of these, in this video. So with that, let me go ahead and power the system on and show you what it does. Alright, here, so we'll go ahead and turn it on, and you can see that the light on the front is on, and it's very dim because it actually does respond to the ambient lighting conditions, even in this state. But basically it'll just sit here and the system will never turn on. As you can see, the display is not on, the backlight of course is not on. This has a sticker on it that I didn't put there, but was on the machine when I got it. But yeah, you can see the lights on, the fans are running, and the optical drive did make its initialization sound, but there's no chime, no video, and of course the machine will not boot. So what I'm going to go ahead and do now is get this machine taken apart, remove the logic board, and then we'll begin the process of replacing the GPU on this machine. Alright, so as you can see here, I've gotten the board removed from the system, and we can see the GPU right here. So you can see that this GPU is indeed the non-revised version of the 8600M GT GPU. You can see that this one has the darker underfill, as I showed you before, and it also has the number G84-602-A2. Now if we go ahead and compare that to the revised chip, you can see that the revised one has the number G84 603-82, and it has that nice white clearish underfill. And that is actually why these are the revised chips. The defective ones had an issue with the darker underfill that you can see on that chip. So what we're going to go ahead and do now is I'm going to go ahead and place this board onto my board preheater here, heat it up, and then we'll begin the process of preparing to remove the chip. And of course we have to get all these off and put some flux on it, and then we can go ahead and remove it using the hot air station. So I'm going to go ahead and get the board preheater up to temperature, and then resume the video once we begin the process of preparing to remove the GPU. Alright, so now that we've gotten the board preheater up to temperature, and the board on it obviously, we can go ahead and begin the process of removing these little adhesive things around the perimeter of the chip. So, go ahead and do that here. Now the board isn't really that secure, which is kind of annoying, but the way this board preheater is, it doesn't line up with the rails quite right, but it'll work just fine. Pull that off there. Alright, now that we've gotten the little adhesive things off the sides of the chip, we can go ahead and grab our flux here and apply some to the board. Alright, and that should be enough flux. So now we'll go ahead and align the hot air nozzle and begin to remove the chip. Alright, good. So now we'll turn the heater on and begin removing the chip. Alrighty, the chip is now ready to come off the board. So I'm going to go ahead and prepare my tweezers here, and we'll go ahead and pull the chip off. Perfect. So now what I'm going to go ahead and do is get my soldering iron warmed up here, and then we'll begin the process of removing the residual solder off of the board. Alright, and that looks pretty darn good. Looks like I got most of the residual solder off of the board. So now we just have to wait for the board to cool down. And then we'll go ahead and clean all this old flux off, apply some new flux, and then we'll be able to solder the new chip onto the board. Alright, so as you can see here, I've gotten the board all cleaned up. And you can see that the pads look absolutely perfect. Look at that. So yeah, we are ready to begin the process of soldering the new GPU onto the board. And I didn't show you this before, but all these GPUs come with solder balls already on them, so I don't have to do any reballing, as you can see there. So all I have to do is put some flux on the bottom of this chip, and it'll be able to be soldered onto the board. So the first thing I need to do, of course, is to get flux onto the bottom of this chip, and that process is pretty easy. I'll go ahead and show you that now, so I'll be right back. Alright, so we are now ready to begin applying some flux onto the chip. So of course the first thing I'm going to do is just apply the flux, just like so. And you don't need a whole lot, so I'm just going to go ahead and alright, and that'll probably be fine. So now I'm going to go ahead and turn on this heater here and use it to melt the flux on the chip. Go ahead and pick the chip up here with some tweezers. I do want to make sure it's stable. And then I'll just go ahead and place it over. Let it heat up the chip. And then the flux will begin to melt. Just like so. Alright, and once the flux gets all melted, you can go ahead and rock the chip side to side like this. And what this will do is it'll get the flux spread out through all the balls of the chip. And there we go. You can see that the flux is now covering the entire chip. So now I'm going to go ahead and put this away. And we can go ahead and put the chip right here. And then once it cools down a little bit, I'm going to go ahead and grab a paper towel and wipe off all of the residual flux. So it's to be pretty cool now. So let's go ahead and grab a paper towel here. And this does get on your hands, so it's kind of disgusting. But go ahead and grab it and then just wipe away all the flux. Of course, this will leave quite a bit of flux, but the problem is if you have too much flux, the chip will actually start to float away while you're trying to solder it, and it makes a huge pain. Alright, so that looks about good. You can see that there's still flux all over the chip, but not nearly as much as there was initially. So that's good, and that means we are ready to begin soldering it onto the board. So I'm going to go ahead and move the camera over and show you the process of soldering the chip back onto the board. Alright, so the board is now up to temperature once again, so we'll go ahead and apply some flux to it. And basically we're gonna do exactly what we did with the chip. We're gonna just put the flux on, and then we're going to use a paper towel to wipe away all the excess. Just like this. And there we go, that looks perfect. So now we're going to go ahead and grab our new chip, place it onto the board, align it, and then heat it up and solder it on. So we're going to align it with the little arrow here pointing towards the white arrow on the board, just like that. And then once we've got it aligned, or once we've got it on the board, rather, we can go ahead and align it. And then we will be able to solder it on. So let me go ahead and grab my tweezers here. And you want this to be aligned just right, obviously, which can sometimes be a bit difficult. Helps to have a light like this. go. I think I got it now. Yep, that looks just about perfect. So now we can go ahead and align the hot air nozzle and begin soldering the chip onto the board. Alright, the chip looks to have soldered on successfully, so now I'm going to go ahead and turn off the hot air and let the chip cool down. Alright, and the chip looks perfect. All the balls look to have soldered on just like they should have. The chip is sitting exactly flush to the board, so I think we were successful. So I'm going to go ahead and let this board cool down, and then I'm going to go ahead and get the flux all cleaned up, show you that, and then we'll go ahead and reassemble the system, test it, and see if it works. Now, once I finish this completely, I am going to put the board in the ultrasonic cleaner after I make sure it works, and that'll get all this flux all over the rest of the board off the board. So yeah, it'll look practically spotless after I'm done doing that. So for now, I'm going to go ahead and let this cool down, give it a test, and then we'll see what happens. So I'll be right back. Alright, so as you can see, I've gotten the chip all nice and cleaned up, and it looks perfect. Look at that. So go ahead and take a look at the side of it here, so you can kind of see the solder balls under there. Go ahead and zoom in. Yeah, you can kind of see the solder balls under the chip there, and they look absolutely perfect, as you can see. So that is really nice. So now that I've gotten the chip soldered onto the board and it all cleaned up, or at least mostly, you can see there is still a bit of flux around here, but the ultrasonic cleaner will take care of that. Now what we'll go ahead and do is get the board all put back in the chassis and prepare for a first power on test. So I'll be right back. Alright, so here we are again. I got the machine reassembled. You can see I have all the heatsink screws in. I did put thermal paste on. I just put the fans in. Nothing's really completely screwed in. But it does have a hard disk installed. I'm not sure if this has an OS installed on it or not. It must have come in the machine. But everything's plugged in. So now we can go ahead and plug it in and see if it works. And it does. Look at that. It is running with the new GPU installed. We'll go ahead into the option menu here. And yeah, it seems like that hard drive does not actually have an OS installed on it. Yeah, I do have it plugged in. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and throw another hard drive in there that I use for testing and get this thing booted up, and we'll go ahead and take a look at the system. Alright, so as you can see, the machine is now booted and it is working 100% perfectly. All the animations are nice and smooth, just like they should be. Go into the launch pad. Now it doesn't have a battery installed, so they're actually not quite as smooth as they normally would be. But let's go ahead into About This Mac. And you can see that it's got a 2.5 gigahertz Intel Core 2 Duo. It has 2 gigs of RAM installed because that's really all I had. And of course, the NVIDIA GeForce 8600M GT graphics card with 512 megabytes of video memory. And that's one of the reasons I was really looking forward to replacing the GPU on this system, because it is not very common that you get one of these that has the 512 megabyte VRAM configuration. So let's go ahead into graphics displays in System Profiler here, and you can see that everything's detected perfectly. It's running at a PCIe lane width of x16. Normally when these the defective variant of these GPUs starts to fail, the PCIe lane width will decrease, going to x8, x4, and then eventually x1, and then eventually the system will just stop booting like this one was before I replaced the GPU. But yeah, the machine is now working perfectly with the new GPU installed, and that means that this machine is good for life. This machine will never fail again. It will never have a graphics card problem ever again, because this new revised chip is revised and doesn't have the manufacturing defect that the original variant did. And I've gotten quite a few of these machines, and I have had some that have already had the revised GPU installed by Apple. Apple actually did that during the recall program in 2010 and later, which is when they started producing the revised GPUs. And not one of those I've ever seen fail. So this machine is good for life. Like I said, it will never ever fail again. And yeah, it is now a fully working system with the revised GPU installed. Now, I do actually offer these types of repairs, including board repair and GPU swaps and even CPU swaps, as you've seen I've done in some previous videos. I do actually offer that as a service to anybody who's located in the US. So if you're located in the US and you'd like either a revised GPU put on your 08 or 07 MacBook Pro logic board, or a new GPU put on any board, except the 2011s. I do not do the 2011s because there's no good revised variant that works on those machines. I have tried with some Chinese sourced chips, and 90% of them are just DOA or just fail like immediately after putting them on the board. So it's not worth repairing the 2011 machines at this point unless there are new revised chips that AMD releases, which they probably won't because they're AMD. But yeah, I do offer this as a service, like I said. So yeah, if you want your machine repaired, I would be happy to do so if you're located in the US. So with that has been the repair of this early 2008 15-inch MacBook Pro. I hope you enjoyed this video.